Hi.
Perfect timing. 5:30 on the dot. Let's get going then. We'll call to order the meeting of the Shelburne Select Board of October 21st, 2024, 5:30 p.m. to order. First matter is the acceptance of the minutes. Um, I I know Tricia had the copy and sent us all, or Terry did, your revised version. I've had a chance to look at it. Have you, Andrew?
Yes, I will move to accept.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. We accept the minutes as tweaked by Tricia. Uh, is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Andrew
Aye.
and Tricia.
Aye.
And I am I, passes unanimously. Liaison reports. Tricia, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you. Let me just get my notes up here. So good news on the tax front. The Angel said that more people have paid up on their delinquent taxes or started payment plans. So this is good news. We do have some people who um, haven't, but we'll keep working at it. And I was wondering about whether we can use the variable message board to remind people that taxes are due on November 1st. I know it's currently in use at Old Greenfield Road because of the construction. And in the absence of being able to use that, if we could use the Blackboard Connect system just to remind people maybe next week that taxes are due on the 1st. So at least we're getting the message out as much as possible. Um, I don't know if we need to discuss that now or we can do it later, but that would be my thoughts on it. I also wanted to give a shout out to Angel and Terry while she was on vacation, helping us out the other night when the herbicide applicator needed to see the ad that was placed in the paper before he could actually apply the herbicide to that project on Old Greenfield Road. And I was getting car sick in the back seat, taking my sister to the airport when the request came in. And so before I turned completely green, Terry let me know that Angel had found it and sent it to Jeff, and everything was good and the herbicide was applied. So I made sure to say thank you to her because it saved me and my sister a big mess, so to speak. So if you see Angel, please give her some thanks. Also, I went by and thanked her in person again today. Um, Terry just got back, as you know, and she had a couple of hundred emails, so I didn't bother her very much. And she still managed to do some awesome things today uh, regarding the film thing and everything. So that was really great. And thank you, Terry, for all of that. Joe is finalizing the schedules and other logistics for the election, and I am signed up for the First Amendment audit class tomorrow, which I have to leave early because of a medical appointment, but I think I'll get most of it in. Tom Williams, our EMD, as you see on the screen, is back from vacation, and he met with Nathan Moreau, our MEMA coordinator, today. Nathan and his team are really excited about our tabletop exercise on Thursday. And most importantly, Nathan wants to assure us that they are not going to be grading us. They're not going to be calling out any individuals that might not do everything right or whatever. That's not what they're looking at. They're just going to be looking at the procedures in our comprehensive emergency management plan and to find any holes in that, so we can make sure we upgrade those plans in case of a real emergency. And regarding training, Tom mentioned that he's pretty sure that Rick Grant has been trained. He knows that Fritz and all the chiefs are all trained. He's not sure about Joe and Jeff yet, or Lori Wheeler, and he thinks Penny probably has taken her thing from before. I had a talk with Angel too about maybe doing something with the excise tax mailouts regarding the stickers for or the decals for cars at the transfer station. So if we're going to talk about that later, I'm happy to talk about it then.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I've got. See you
Perfect.
guys on Thursday, right? Are you both going to be able to attend the tabletop exercise? Or Andrew, I know you're working, so I wasn't sure if you could do it.
I'll be there, yes.
I have it in my calendar. I don't know how much time I can give to it.
All right, thank you. At least, Rick, you're the ones who's going to be signing all the paperwork, so I'm glad you'll be there.
Bring my pen.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I got.
Andrew, liaison reports.
Yes, I went to the Franklin Regional Council of Governments meeting last Thursday on the 17th. They are looking for finance and personnel committee members. Not signing up for that myself. I don't know if you're interested or eligible as an alternate, Rick, but there it is. Linda reported there is funding available for the towns for cybersecurity and for election security. If anybody's interested in exploring those pots of money. Most of the meeting was spent on budget review, since they've put in place a system of dedicating the meeting prior to the meeting where the budget is up for a vote, which will be in January, to kind of going through the budget together. It's a $10 million budget. Member towns collectively are assessed at about 500,000. So there's a lot of leverage there of grants that the COG secures. They have total of 59 employees, 52 FTE. And they just kind of walked us through the budget. I'm not going to do that with you tonight unless you have specific questions. But I will touch on a few high points. One is that the FERCog is in excellent shape regarding their OPEB liability, which we have discussed in our past meetings. I think they're at over 95%, 98% funded, and they've worked on that for a few decades. One thing they did mention is that if a town has met the minimum percentage in funded toward your liability, then you're allowed to join the state's OPEB system. And they mentioned that the state is a good investor and has enabled them to accelerate their payoff of their liability, by being able to join that state system. Um, and they mentioned, just by way of shout out, that the town of Coleraine is also pretty much fully funded. So Kevin Fox has been working hard on that. So it is possible for us small towns to deal with that, but we can keep pegging away at ours. They mentioned in regard to accounting that we will need to have a conversation about whether Shelburne can continue in FY25 with the shared accounting system. I don't know, Terry, if you have anything light to shed on that in terms of where we are.
No, we had talked about sharing accounting services with the town of Whately, and then
Right.
the FERCog said that they would keep us on, so we didn't make any changes.
So it
But
sounds
this
like
is
they are keeping us on, but not for very long. So we're going to have
okay.
to address it in the sooner than later kind of time frame.
All right. I'll reach out to Bob Dean about that.
Yeah. Um, They also mentioned, I think, Rick, you may be on top of this. The Franklin Regional Planning Board has a stormwater management toolkit for maintaining dirt road construction. There's 7 tools. They said there's an MVP grant that will help FERCog work with DPWs supers to kind of demo these tools. So something I can talk about with Jeff about whether he's interested in pursuing that. And then the last thing was really giving us a heads up on charter changes, which they have not done since the charter was first put in place in 1996. And as I think Linda and other senior staff are preparing to retire, they're wanting to sort of clean things up for the future. They reviewed some of the proposed changes. It's a fairly arduous change process that requires 2/3 of the towns passing the changes with a 2/3 majority in each town. And we'll be looking at the final language in January. It's mostly housekeeping stuff. It's nothing too earth-shattering, so I don't expect that will be big. One thing that you, Rick, and Trisha might be interested in, I don't know if you saw the emails about the fifth Wednesday meetings that they're proposing to, and they sort of went through a variety of the topic areas that had been proposed. One of them that I think will be coming up in their next meeting in January is to invite the Franklin County Legislative Delegation after they file their bills to kind of walk us through their process and stuff like that. And explain how towns can get involved in that process. There were a number of other ideas proposed. And then on the highway area, I did meet with Jeff. You saw his email, I think, today about the temporary bridge, which is still in progress. But the good news is that the DOT has signed off on the plan. The less good news is that it sounds somewhat expensive to implement that plan. The first quote he got was for $25,000 to put that bridge in place. So he is trying to track down some other estimates, and we'll see where that goes, but that's something we will have to address. The solar is still projected to start this week or on the 28th. The PV Squared is wrapping up another project, and they'll keep us posted on when they start, but it sounds like soon. They got Concom approval on last Tuesday to put in the culvert up on Patton Road. There's a 10-day waiting period, so he expects we can start perhaps as soon as this Friday on that project. As Trisha mentioned, the glyphosate was applied to Connie Clark's property on Wednesday last week. The frost was not a problem, so they went ahead with that. Jeff has landscape fabric and wood chips and staples ready to address the knotweed with the cover and smother on the Cosby land. I think he's saying he will pluck some of the knotweed as they can this fall, but the consultant, Brian Callahan, said that project would be actually better to start in the spring. So they may just wait for that. They expect on Old Greenfield Road, the paving will be done by the end of this week. And the only thing really left is the guardrail and line painting. Warner will do a final invoice in mid-November, and we'll see then what kind of money we have at the end of the project. But because of all the ledge work they did, we may have to use another funding source to do the guardrails and stuff. And I think that's pretty much it. The crew is getting ready for winter. Ray is checking the vehicles for inspections the end of this month. And that's all I got.
Terrific. Thank you both for those. You mentioned the 7-element toolkit for the stormwater on unpaved roads. I was at the Franklin Regional Planning Board meeting when that was presented, and they are going to go out and make individual presentations of it to all the highway superintendents. So Jeff will be getting that with a visit to go over it as well. So it's perfect timing. It's 5:45. Love palindromes. Our first appointment, Weston and Sampson, MVP Action Grant, expression of interest. Who do we have to speak to that?
I'll start, Rick, and then I will let Emily and Allison chime in.
Great.
Terry, could I share my screen, please? So we have with us today Emily DeFranco from Weston and Sampson. She's a professional project manager. Did I get that right? And Allison Gage, whom we know fondly from the FERCog, who did some awesome work for us on helping us devise this plan. So I'm gonna I had mentioned to you folks the other day about, hang on one second. Okay, let's do that. At our last meeting, we had talked about the Dragon Brook watershed, and Allison put together this map that shows in high relief in bright colors what the Dragon Brook watershed actually looks like on a map of Shelburne. I'm going to switch screens now to show you. Then when I spoke with you, Andrew had mentioned it would be a good idea to also talk to Jeff Johnston about what the pinch points were, what we're looking at in terms of areas throughout the town of Shelburne that we know have problems. And so he spoke with his team, and he actually went out and can you see now?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So he went through and took pictures and identified, even putting, as you can see here, the actual coordinates of some of the areas that we know are problematic, the top 10 areas. And he wrote notes, and we provided all of that to Allison. And then Allison overlaid all of those issues, all of those spots onto a map of Shelburne. So you'll see now the full map of Shelburne here, which is in light brown. And then I'm going to enlarge this just so you can see what I want to show you. You see this purple edge here. That is that map of the Dragon Brook watershed that I showed you earlier. On top of this map, Allison identified in these yellow rectangles the areas that Jeff had noted were problem areas known to the town. So I'm just going to scroll down, and anything that you see that's listed as a red dot is a high-risk stream crossing from the FERCog's assessment that they did back in, it was 2018, right, Allison?
Yep.
So this is a page from that, and then she overlaid those items onto it. I'm going to now zoom back out so that you can see where a lot of the yellow is occurring. It's within that purple boundary of the Dragon Brook watershed. So after speaking with the folks at Weston and Sampson, who wouldn't be, and FERCog also, wouldn't be available to do an entire resilient drainage plan for the entire town, but could do something on a smaller scale. It looks like scaling it down to the Dragon Brook watershed and these high water crossings or high risk crossings that we know about would match all of the criteria that we really need for a good MVP project. Now, speaking of match, when I met with everybody the other day, I was very clear that if we're still, if the criteria from last year regarding matches is in place, it means Shelburne would have no match. And if that's the case, then we'll go ahead and apply. But if it's not the case, then I'm not sure that this is worth our while to do, because we could probably get no match DER grants for the culverts. I just don't know how many of them we'd be able to get done, and we wouldn't be looking at the watershed as a whole. So in terms of a resilience plan, it's much better to do the entire watershed. It fits within a lot of the priorities that the FERCog has with developing watershed resilience plans. So I'd be very happy to help collaborate on that as well. The problem is it's going to need to be a 2-year project, and if there, which will be more expensive, obviously. And so if there's a match associated with it, that might be a no deal, for us as a town. I'm happy to share all of this with you guys. I just didn't have everything together in time for last Thursday. So I can share this with you again, so you can look at it for yourselves. If you have no more questions if you don't have any questions about these pictures themselves, I'd like to stop sharing and then let Emily or Allison take the floor to explain their parts in it, because FERCog and Weston and Sampson will have really big roles to play in this project. So I'll stop sharing now, and then I can see everybody's faces. So Emily or Allison, Emily, I guess from the engineering aspect, did I get everything right?
I think so, yeah. And really our role would be to do hydrologic models, essentially, to model the flow that would be coming to those pinch points, which would then allow us to really figure out what size culverts would be appropriate and what would be a good, what would be the cost for replacement, what would be the appropriate size, what permits would you need, sort of pulling all those things together so you have a prioritized plan. And the type of modeling that I was talking to our modeler today, that they would be doing would be the type of modeling. It wouldn't just be like a general watershed model. It would be what you would need for bridge replacements, for culvert replacements. It's a specific modeling. So it'd be really that step would be checked when you're looking at, actually going to the replacement part. So that I think would be helpful. So that's really our role, would be to, take the data that's collected in the first year of the project, model, and, give our sort of engineering opinion on what would be the best sort of course for you, and also identify some areas within that watershed where we could install some, or suggest installing some nature-based solutions in other places to sort of slow the flow down before it gets to the culvert, so you don't have as much water flowing through as well. So that's really our role. And we've done similar projects and had success with them through these MVP grants, especially if you can get the no match ones, it's great. But it is a good source of funding, and they tend to like these types of grants because it's anything that really spells out the next steps in such a way that you really then almost have like a menu approach of what you want to do next. Everything is there for you, and everything's there for DPW even to be able to pick it up and do something with. That's really, they tend to fund those, I find. So.
Thank you.
That's great. And
Allison?
Allison, I just want to make sure you also talk about the fluvial geomorphologist that you folks know that you would contract with to help that piece of the project happen. And also thank you again for your work here that made it so clear what we needed to do.
Yeah, of course. So we've been working with the town of Buckland on a very similar project in the Clesson Brook watershed to both model the Clesson Brook, and we did a full size model that Emily was speaking to, along with a fluvial geomorphic assessment, which meant that Nick Miller from Field Geology Services went out and walked the entire length of the brook and did a lot of stream bank mapping to find the points where there was significant erosion happening, and where the brook had changed after Tropical Storm Irene. So it's another assessment that can be really helpful to identify potential nature-based solutions, which, as Emily mentioned, is what the MVP program is really interested in funding. So just another angle to make it a little bit more competitive. And then in addition to that, we also wanted to do some landowner outreach in the watershed, and that's just setting the stage for implementation of any nature-based solutions that are identified, because most likely they would be going in on private property. So it's nice to start to build those relationships and yeah, just get some buy-in before proposing anything.
Terrific. Sounds like a plan. So it comes down to applying or not applying based on match or no match, right? Keep us
That's
posted.
right. Okay, so we'll go ahead once I get the budget numbers from Weston and Sampson and Allison. I should have those within a week or sooner. We have to apply for that by November 1st. So as soon as I have that, I think they've already looked at the draft. Emily put some nice additions to it, to the narrative I had already written. So we're all set to go on that. I think all we have to do is add these maps and the budget numbers, and we'll go ahead and get feedback from EEA, the MVP program, and then wait till the thing gets announced, which I don't know, maybe February, March. What was your I think that's when it's going to be, right?
Yes, they seem to be trying to bump it up a little bit earlier each year, so I'm hoping February, March.
That's right, because we were operating on a December 15th date for this EOI this year, and it came out, it's like, no, it's November 1st. And I was like, okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. And thank Rick and Andrew for your support on this project. I think it should be really awesome if we can get it done. And if not, we have a plan B and C and probably D.
Rick?
Terrific. Andrew?
I just have a question. It sounds like the application that you're aiming for is to prepare the plan for this study. Is that correct?
Well, no, it would be the study. It just wouldn't be the implementation of the study.
That's right. That's what I meant. But the study being the plan.
Yeah.
And does MVP also have a pot of money for implementation?
Yes, but you'd have to do this first. It would be like the first.
Right. No, I understand that.
Yeah, so that would be identifying funding sources as part of the plan. So what would be the correct funding source for each of those specific culvert or bridge replacements? Some of them might be MVP. There might be other ones that would be more appropriate for a specific culvert as well.
Okay.
Terrific.
All right. Thank you.
And is there in the study a approach to this stormwater management that sort of ties in with Jeff's sort of overall purview of maintaining roads as well as culverts, or is that really up to him to sort of figure out how this MVP project fits in with his overall vision of how to manage the town's roads?
That's a good question. I find most of the time when we do these any type of watershed project, we're trying to identify work that we're probably going to ask DPW to do. We just bring them in throughout the whole project, and that really is the way it tends to line up when you do it that way, because they're presenting to you their priorities, which are in their head, because that's how they want. They're already thinking about getting things done, and so it tends to work out that way if you actually want to see work done. So that's my experience, is bring them in early and get them on board, and then everything falls into place. So
no,
we go into it with that in mind, I'd say.
good. It seems to me that the integrating how you put in culverts with when you're going to rebuild or repair roads would make sense rather than seeing them as two separate things.
Yep. And a lot, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Tricia.
I was just going to say, I do want to emphasize how awesome Jeff has been. I mean, we asked for this and he went out and took went and looked at everything, put the maps together and got them to Allison within a couple of days. And we would not be in this position if it weren't for his work. So I think he is, and he attended a meeting with all of us earlier last week. So we intend to keep him involved throughout the entire process because what they know at the highway department is absolutely invaluable. I mean, we wouldn't be here without them.
Yeah,
But that's an excellent point, Andrew. Thank you.
he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for that. We appreciate it. We have our 6 o'clock appointment here, ready to go. Thank you again, folks.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. We'll
Thank
see you
you all.
soon.
Have a good night.
Okay, you too.
Thank you. We're at 6 o'clock for the Mohawk Trail Regional School District Sustainability Study Update. I will say before we start that actually hats off to Willow, who's sent us, I think, the August update. Mary Walsh sent us the September. Martha Thurber sent us the October one on the 3rd. And we got the other one from the superintendent on the 8th. So we've got several copies of the September one, but I think the September one had some minor changes as well. So we're looking forward to getting an overview and updates on that. And who would like to begin this? Let's see, I lost.
Hi, Rick. It's Cheryl.
Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So many people tonight, the screen's this big.
Martha is
I
having issues starting her video and audio.
Okay.
I am going to share, I hope. Oh, sharing is not turned on. So we shared with you prior the PowerPoint that we were hoping to use. I'm not sure if I could email it maybe, if someone could present it on your end, or we can, we shortened it up quite a bit, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
We have the one that you folks sent us on the dated on the 8th. Are you saying you've made updates since then?
Okay,
Yeah.
we didn't make updates,
Final version.
we just
Final
shortened it. Yeah.
Okay. Rick, I'm happy to share it. I've got it on my screen right now if that's
Is that the one you
helpful.
wanted, Cheryl? The one from the 8th? Or did-
That's fine. What we'll do, actually, Tricia, can I email it to you?
Sure.
Just a little bit different because it's shorter.
All right.
Oh, I will mention while that's going through the intertube that we do have members of the Finance Committee joining us tonight for this presentation as well. And welcome to you folks.
Ellie, do you want to get started with just the introductions?
Yeah, of course. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Elizabeth Van Eiderstein. I'm the chair of the Hollamont School Committee. With us tonight is also Martha Thurber, the chair of the Mohawk Trail School District School Committee, and of course, Cheryl Stanton, the superintendent. We'd like to thank you for having us all this evening. As Cheryl mentioned, we'll be sharing a shortened version of our presentation, but any of the versions you've received, as you stated, you've had a few. We'll give you most of the information that we're covering here. Also, links within those go straight to the 2 District 8 Town website, which has all of the full reports, minutes from all of our meetings, and more information than you could possibly ever want to read. The most important thing is that tonight we're here to hear from you. We've spoken to the other select boards, or a few other select boards. We haven't spoken to Heath or Coleraine yet. But just want you to know there's no preferred solution, and any final decision are up to all 8 towns voters. And hopefully we'll be able to get through this and have time for your questions at the end. We'll be able to get.
Did you send it, Cheryl?
I did.
Okay. Did you send it to my regular Gmail address? Do you know?
Oh, probably.
Okay,
It's
that's
probably-
okay. I have it open. I'm just not seeing it yet.
Yes, I did.
To my regular Gmail? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Still not here. Sometimes it's slow.
I guess Trisha, maybe just show the one that you have, and we'll probably just ask you to go through some slides more quickly.
Okay, sure. I can do that.
Thanks.
And get started.
Absolutely.
So we would be on slide, I think, 4, challenges.
Okay.
Oh, we skipped slide 2.
Oh, is it slide 2?
We ran slide 2.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
No, that's quite all right.
Oh, that's right.
Also, we want to thank the town of Charlemont and Sarah Reynolds, the town administrator there, for their partnership in making the Community Compact grant for this study possible. The goal of this study is to support the ongoing study and analysis of the operating and organizational structures of the 2 regional school districts. Pardon me, so sorry. And doing so, we aim to deliver the highest quality educational experiences for students in the 8 towns while reflecting the fiscal realities of our towns and our residents.
So I think the challenges that we're facing are pretty well known. And they're in the bullets. They're declining enrollment, rising operational costs. We have had no reasonable increase in state aid in more than 20 years. And we have the increasing needs of our student body. So in view of these challenges, we just need to explore all of the options and opportunities that we do have to provide our students with the best possible educational experience and prepare them for whatever they may choose in the future.
Thanks, Martha. A little bit about the approach that we've been using with Berk 12 and the steering committee. Part 1 was the study where we gathered research, baseline data on both of the districts with input from staff, students, families, and communities. And then we went through the second step, which was planning, where we analyzed and synthesized all of this work to create some priority options that could lead toward a preferred future. And right now we are in Engage. So we are out at multiple meetings with select boards and finance committees with the public to solicit input on the options that you are going to hear about tonight, and try to see where the communities are thinking. So just a little bit, I guess next slide, steering committee. We have broad representation from all towns and the community. And to even increase that, next slide, we have used advisory teams to support the work of the steering committees. So, or the steering work, the steering committee. So the advisory teams are able to have more people from the community on them, and their work supports the work of the steering committee. And so, Trisha, this is where we might differ a little bit from you. There are a lot of baseline reports, and I'm going to kick it over to Martha.
Yeah, why don't you just, if you just want to go to the next slide, Trisha, and we'll just work from that, because there's There are a number of reports. They're all available on the website, two, as in numeral 2 towns, 8 numeral district.org. But these reports are the foundation of the work that we've been doing with both our community outreach efforts through our public meetings and our surveys, but also in a series of in-depth reports that have been prepared by experts engaged by Burke 12. So I'm just going to run through these quickly, but I encourage you to read these reports if you have the time. They are very comprehensive, or at least I hope that you would read through the synopses that are included in the progress report that we sent to you earlier in connection with this meeting. So I'm just going to go through, and I don't think you have to move through the slides, Tricia. I'm just going to tell you kind of what is in each of these reports. Enrollment is pretty self-explanatory. It shows the level of the decline in enrollment in our district, and it walks through why that has occurred and how it's not just it's demographics. It's not just the Mohawk Trail district, but many of the rural and smaller districts across the in fact, many of 2/3 of the districts in the Commonwealth. The community outreach report shows the results and the discussions that occurred in many of the meetings and surveys that have been done, including a survey that was sent to every household in the 8 towns, and a separate survey of families that have decided not to send their students to Mohawk Trail. The facilities report reviews the state of our current physical facilities, our buildings, and discusses the student capacity in those buildings to help inform the ideas that may involve potential school closures or consolidations. The personnel portion of the finance report, there's a finance and personnel report. The finance report obviously looks at not only school finances, but town finances, and looking at what we have done and can do to keep our assessments low, but also town's ability to pay for those assessments in the future. The personnel portion takes a look at that part of our budget that's about 70% of our expenses. And the education report takes a look at the programs and courses that we're offering now, and that makes some recommendations for how we might change that in the future.
Other reports that are there, 3 other areas of inquiry that we're going to affect our modeling and that we feel we need to understand a bit further are regional agreements, whether that's the individual agreements for each district, what a mutual agreement would look like for combining the districts, what transportation is going to look like, whether it's our current double tiered system or moving to a single tier system, and what early childhood education is going to look like moving forward for our communities.
So now,
if I can interrupt real quick, if I can stop sharing, I'm going to pull up the thing that just came through, if that's okay. Would you like me to do that? Okay, so and then I'll share again.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
I was about ready to tell you to go to like slide
30 something.
Thanks, Trisha.
You're welcome. It's going to take a second because it's a PowerPoint and I didn't have PowerPoint open. So,
okay. Do folks from the Select Board and Finance Committee, do you have the PowerPoint open or no?
The PowerPoint that I have that Terry sent me is sideways in the packet, so not easy to read.
Oh dear.
that's good.
that was, oh yeah, it was converted to a PDF, Cheryl, and yeah, that's what I was showing just now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So now I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint whenever it decides to open. It's slow because I'm on Zoom, so it's an old computer. Who is that, Elizabeth?
That's our newest addition to the family. She's a hound dog that showed up during a barbecue this summer, and she likes to speak when it's dinner time. She's very mad at me for being in a meeting.
Okay.
So, Trisha, we'll be on slide 23.
Okay. It's opening. 23. Gotcha.
All right. So we're here really to give you background, but also to share with you how we got to the 5 options that we will be modeling. So for, oh my goodness, how we got there. Okay.
No,
So
oh, Cheryl, wait a second. It's not presenting. Is it supposed to be presenting?
No, not yet. I'm still getting it to
Good.
present, and then I'm going to share. It's slow. Okay. And I think I needed to do this sharing my screen first. Hold on. Okay.
There we go.
Let me start the. Okay, so that should be what you're talking about. That's number 23.
Great.
yes. Okay. So next slide, please. Great. All right. So how did we get to the 5? We, through surveys and our virtual town halls and our in-person school meetings, we came up with 177 universe of possibilities. And that was from input from all of the meetings that we had and surveys with student, staff, families, and town officials, and also looking back at the history of this challenge. So from that, we put a filter on those 177 ideas, and we asked, do the ideas truly affect sustainability? And this will be important in a minute, but if we apply that filter, we got down to 56 ideas. On that filter, we also applied rating by ease and impact. So were there any ideas that were just not going to fly right out of the gate? So next slide, please. We then rated the 56 by impact, and we had 4 areas of impact: educational quality, operating efficiency, finance, and feasibility. And so from the 27, we got down to 5 of the most promising options and ideas to model moving forward. It's important because we did not lose any of the 177 ideas. We touched every single one. And as we moved through the process, there were 14 that are supportive ideas that can be implemented by administration and or school committees, and may also be part of how we model moving forward. Next slide, and I'll pass it over to Martha.
Right. So, as Cheryl said, when we were engaging with the various constituencies, we heard a lot of great ideas that really didn't rise to the level of a modeling option. So we did listen to and examine all of those ideas. And as she said, many of them could be implemented by the administration or the school committee independent of this particular project. And we expect that we will integrate a number of them in some way into the options that are being modeled. And these are things like adding more career and technical courses at Mohawk Trail, considering a single tier bus schedule that could reduce our transportation budget, increasing our marketing and outreach efforts to help attract and retain students. Again, there were a large number of these, many of which were duplicates, but also that could be combined in some way. So we haven't lost them, and they will be. We definitely heard from people what they were, and we've tried to integrate them as we've been working through into these models. So the 5 models, and we took out the slide that showed you all of them at once. So the first one that we're looking at, we've kind of grouped these ideas as being the highest rated models, but 2 of them are really selected because not because they really are the highest potential to effectively affect our sustainability, but because they're very important as baseline information. So the first of these is just doing nothing, keeping the status quo. There are no school closures. We keep all of our schools. The towns retain all of their schools, but doesn't provide any movement towards sustainability, efficiency, or alignment. Next slide. The second model is,
sorry. A second model would be to merge Mohawk Trail and Hollamont Regional School Districts. In this model, there would be no school closures. All schools would remain operational. There'd be no change in travel times or the bus system. Obviously, the challenges from that is that provides very limited efficiencies and savings and alignment between the districts. Ongoing facilities and capital investments will be needed in all of the buildings. And there's also the issue of regional agreements and the governance of the schools.
Next slide. Thank you. You're getting good, Trisha. I'm going to hire you to be my Vanna. So model 3 would be to move grade 6 students to Mohawk Trail Regional. We would do this in 2 ways. One would be to maintain Hollamont and Mohawk Trail as separate districts. And then that would be one. And then the other way would be to merge the districts into a single pre-K-12 district and move grade 6. So that would mean the elementary levels would become pre-K-5 and the middle school would be 6 through 8. So what are the opportunities here? There would be no school closures. We would still be operating 5 schools. There would be limited efficiencies, but we would have, there would be some limited efficiencies. There would be now a true middle school, 6-8, and a stronger relationship with grade 6 families at Mohawk Trail Regional with the ability to enhance the student experience of 6th graders. Some of the challenges to this would be the slight change in travel for 6th graders. There aren't as many efficiencies as closure and less alignment. And we would be looking at ongoing facilities and capital investments needed to keep 5 schools open. And again, the regional agreement and governance issue is something that would present a challenge. So next slide. Okay, so similarly to model 3 is model 4, which moved grade 6 students to Mohawk Trail Regional. In this model, we absolutely assume that Hollamont and Mohawk Trail merge into a single district because we would be examining creating the 6-8 middle school with options of closing 1 or more elementary schools. And the schools would be to be determined. What we're looking at here isn't which schools as much as is there viability in creating the 6-8 middle school by closing a single elementary school, 2 elementary schools, or all elementary schools consolidating on a single site, most likely BSE. Okay, so the opportunities there, obviously, as you look at school closures, you are going to have some reduction in operation and capital costs. There'll be class size balancing. So right now we have some classes of 6 to 9 in some schools where other schools have 20 to 23. The use of the buildings, the closed school buildings for alternative purposes, so senior living or Mary Lyon Foundation projects around health and community, providing community health services. There would be a closer alignment for elementary programming as you have more of the same grade of more of the teachers of the grade working together. Again, a stronger relationship with grade 6 students and families, the enhanced 6th grade experience, and potentially a consideration of elementary closures by location rather than physical condition. So we could start taking a look at having students go to an elementary school that was geographically closer to where they lived and start to consider reducing bus times in that manner. So what are the challenges? Again, not to be understated, some towns would no longer have an elementary school, although 4 of our towns already don't have an elementary school, but we understand that for many towns, that is a big, big deal. The changes in potentially longer travel times. And if it were BSE that becomes the district elementary school, it will need significant capital upgrades to bring all of the elementary students to that site. And off to
Okay,
Martha.
so the final model is creating a single pre-K to 12 campus at the Mohawk Trail Regional School campus. Obviously, this option presents the most dramatic change. It maximizes the personnel and operating efficiencies and lowers our overall costs. It enhances educational and extracurricular opportunities and support services for all students. It broadens the student cohorts again. It eliminates any 1 or 2 towns feeling like they've been singled out for school closures and allows us an opportunity to form an entirely new elementary identity that can capture the best of traditions from each of the existing schools. And the towns that do lose their elementary schools, there would be significant new, yes, towns do lose their elementary schools, and there would be significant new construction and renovation costs. So, I mean, one of the key things that causes inefficiencies in our districts today is the fact that we have teachers and staff, especially special education staff, counseling staff, some PE staff, and others who go between schools. And so we're paying them to be on the road between elementary schools rather than being able to walk down the hall. So that's a real source of efficiency here. But obviously, this would be a huge change and presents the biggest challenges. Ellie, I didn't know you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I just want to point out that even though we're saying it would be a single campus, that means more the property than just a single building. This could be creating a separate elementary school or a separate middle school, or creating more whatever onto the additional building. But when we say a single campus, it doesn't mean we're going to pack all of the children into the existing building.
Yep.
Next slide.
Next one after this. Okay.
Yes. All right. So how are we going to think about these models? I won't read you all of these questions, but we're thinking about each of these models and the impact that it might have on finances, on teaching and learning, on the student experience, on transportation, on the family experience, and faculty and staff experience. So in addition, there's a bunch of other questions that we want to ask, but for the sake of time, next slide. And this is Martha.
Oh, okay. So anyway, we do want to thank you for having us tonight. We want you to please remember that there's no preferred option. We haven't made any final decisions. This would be a community process, and we're really just at the beginning. Any changes that will take a time to develop and to implement and must be voted on at town meetings by all 8 towns and be unanimous. So we're at the very beginning. The sort of next step is that Jake Everwine and the Burt 12 team will be looking at each of these models in depth. And by sometime in January or so, we'll try to come out with, after a series of their modeling, our additional discussion with the communities, with our staff, with all of the constituencies involved, try to come out, we hope, to some kind of consensus model or option that folks are willing to have us do even more work on. Because once you pick a model, then you really have to say, what does that look like in depth? What does it look like on a day-to-day basis for kids and parents in these schools? What does it look like for transportation? What does it look like for everything? So that would be a little, certainly more work that we would have to do. And we figured this would be something that won't be to town meetings before 2027. I really don't. Maybe 26, but that would be, I think, aggressive. It'd be more likely 2027. And then, if you're doing construction or anything like that, you're talking several years beyond that to actually have it done. So open to questions. If you have any questions or comments, or if there's anything we can explain further, we certainly appreciate your time.
Rick?
Yes, Andrew.
Yeah, I guess a question and a comment. I mean, I guess if I was to boil this down to what you could put on a postcard, that models 1 through 3, in short, seem like they're mainly there to walk you toward considering 4 and 5, because there's not enough financial gain there in 1 through 3 to be worth pursuing. And given the difficulty we have in changing our regional agreement, which we've already seen in the last couple of years, it would be a heavy lift to change the agreement for not very much gain. And so then you have the other, the opposite problem of 4 and 5 are really, really hard. And we know that from having closed the school in Heath. And, you have the potential for backlash of the Warwick and Worthington varieties, of towns saying, oh, well, we're going to just create our own elementary school then, and then what does that do to your model, so I think to me, if I were to put it on a postcard, I would say 4 and 5 are the places where the gold is, but they're also the hardest ones to do.
Yeah, I think the reason that we, obviously we want to model the status quo just to say, if we do nothing, this is what it means for towns going forward. You can say we don't want to change anything. We love everything the way it is. If you want to make that decision, then you should at least know what that means in terms of your tax rates, in terms of your, assessments going forward. And, modeling whether we join Holloman or we don't, I think is, there are certainly folks in Holloman and in Charlemont and Holly who feel strongly about their school too. So we want to show them again, what happens if you don't do anything. So those are really sort of just, we have to do those because people need to see what happens if we do nothing. And the third option is certainly a step, but it's not the be all and end all for sure. And we understand that, I think.
I would say the one positive about number 4 is that it does offer, at least to me, the possibility of phasing in school relocations so that you could bite that off in smaller chunks if people felt like that was a good direction to go in. Option 5, obviously, is a big capital project with everybody going all in on it,
Right.
Tricia.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that. A couple of times I've heard this because I went to the presentation on the 10th as well about the increasing needs of the students. Has this been a trend, or has this happened like since COVID, like we've heard elsewhere? Is this something you anticipate continuing, or is it going to subside now that the pandemic is over and we can thankfully leave that in our rearview mirror?
All of the above. I would say that we are still supporting students who have significant issues because of COVID. I think that having increased student needs was a trend before COVID, and we're looking to data around students' reports of anxiety, students' reports of suicide ideation, and those have nationally and across the state and in Mohawk Trail, we've seen increases in that. Our hiring of adjustment counselors, I think, is an indication of what we're trying to accomplish in supporting students. So I don't think that the increased needs are going to go away. the learning needs, I think, the academic needs. I hope that within the next 2 years, we'll see that we've caught up as students have early childhood and kindergarten and first grade experiences, that they will be more likely at grade level. So I'm excited about that. I think one of the areas which is tricky, and I don't want to blame anything or anyone, but we are seeing significant increases in costs for special education, particularly out of district special education. And so, while we try to create our own special education specialized programs to support our students, because we do truly believe that if we can educate our students closest to the peers, it's the best for the students and the families and for our community. Knowing that there are some cases where we can't, and we too look for an out-of-district placement. But as we look for out-of-district placements and or we receive students from other districts that move into our communities and are already out-of-district placed, the costs of those out-of-district placements are skyrocketing, and the availability of spaces in those programs is declining rapidly. So like the public schools, they are not able to find staff. So they are asking for more significant increases from the state in their tuition increases. So I think last year it was 14.9% they got as an increase for tuitions. We didn't even hit inflation as public school districts. So I know that the legislature is considering how to adjust to these increases in costs, particularly for special education, looking again at the reimbursement formula for special education circuit breaker, trying to see if there's some adjustment to that needs to be made. Also in Chapter 70, Rep. Blay and Senator Comerford really pushing on an actual, more realistic reimbursement for special education in Chapter 70, and in general, an opening of the Chapter 70 formula.
I guess to follow up on that, one thing that you mentioned, which makes me curious as somebody who worked in public health for 10 years, is why this increase has happened. Is it due to better surveillance, better diagnostic tools? Is it something that we as the communities can help with in terms of making children feel happy and healthy, loved, cared for, so that they don't want to, they aren't having those very dangerous thoughts? So
Sure.
I guess that's a lot of questions, but I'm just trying to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, I
Thank
think a couple of things. Cell phones are being looked at as potentially a source of increased anxiety for students. That's a kind of a dual-edged sword in the research right now, but that's something that folks are thinking about, could be causing this increase in mental health concerns for students. I think that students' access to social media is a real challenge. And this immediate gratification for information and or belonging through the internet is a real issue, something that we're working with students. And so, in fact, at the middle school and high school, we have a phones away all day policy. So there are no cell phones in the middle school at all. And teachers and students are reporting a more focused presence in the classrooms, and certainly less of technology interfering with learning that's happening in classrooms. So I do think there's, and I do agree, I think there's more reporting, which is a good thing. And I also think that we are using the data around students and how they're feeling to to a larger degree. So we have data on from DESE called the Vocal Survey. And we also have the PNAS, which is from FERCog. And the combination of those two data sources really helps us understand where the trends in our students' thinkings around their school environment and whether they feel like they belong, but also their mental health and at-risk behaviors.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. On one of the slides where you were looking at the putting the 6th grade up into Mohawk, was there, I can't recall, was there capital expense involved in that?
Not for that.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Yeah. There would probably need to be a reorienting of part of the school. In other words, the 7th and 8th grader in a single hallway in the front. We most likely could not fit 6 and 7 and 8 together in that hallway. So we would have to look at kind of restructuring the building a little bit.
But it certainly has the space for it, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, there is a significant underuse, under capacity.
Anyone else have any other questions?
Not at the moment, but I might send you some emails.
Sure. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
if
Look
have
forward
questions
to it.
At all, definitely let us know, because, and as I say, if you haven't read the progress report that we sent, or pieces of it anyway, I hope you will do that, because there's been a ton of information that's been generated here that's informing all of these decisions and all of these discussions as we go ahead. So thanks again very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All
Thanks
right.
for your time.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, very interesting. All right, back to liaison reports. I think I'm up. Terry, did you have anything you needed to bring forward tonight? Okay. I have a couple. There's several police matters coming up later on our agenda, so I'll skip that. You recall at the last meeting, it was decided that I would shoot over to the Franklin County Technical School for the formation of the negotiations subcommittee of the Franklin County Technical School District for negotiations with the Franklin County Technical School teachers. It was very interesting. I'm glad I went. It was a group of select board chairs and school committee members for that school, for the regional tech school. There were 8 towns with select board chairs, 4 other town representatives as well. I didn't realize there's 19 towns in the tech school. It's I'd forgotten how big it was. When you call it the Franklin County Tech School, you lose track a little bit, I guess, when Mohawk's in your head.
Tech school is bigger than 19 towns, Rick. It's more like 50 towns.
Not according to the document they gave us.
Really?
Yeah. Well, let me read this for you then. I think I have it quick.
Oh, maybe not. I think they go beyond Franklin County, don't they? Or no?
Well, yes, but there's only 19.
Oh, okay.
The member towns of the Franklin County Tech School are Bernardston, Buckland, Coleraine, Conway, Deerfield, Irving, Gill, Greenfield, Heath, Leiden, Montague, New Salem, Northfield, Orange, Shelburne, Sunderland, Warwick, Wendell, and Whately. So there's 19, which is more than I thought it was. But in any event, the purpose of that meeting was to pick one town select board chair to represent an at-large position. There's 5 members on that negotiating committee. 5 are from the school committee, and they have they represent the people. The 4 representing in that category are from Coleraine, Wendell, Gill, and Montague. There were a couple of people from different towns that were interested in picking up the at-large spot. It came down to a ballot vote, and a Miss DeWill from Select Board member from New Salem was chosen to be the at-large, the fifth member of the negotiating committee. They start negotiations about November 26th. So it was a learning experience for me. I really enjoyed it. It seems like they have a great relationship, the negotiating team with the Teachers Association, and it's not as confrontational as you hear about in the ones that are in the news. So that's a good thing. The Upper Pioneer Valley Veterans Services District held their meeting actually the same evening as the tech school negotiating committee was formed. The towns have been notified for ordering the Memorial Day flag requests, and they need the orders back in by December 1st. And I'm sure we've sent that on to the veterans that decide whether or not any are needed. The fiscal year, let me skip that one for a second. The recertification of the district, you recall we discussed, has to be done periodically, and we've been renewed by the state through July 1st of 2026. The budget was passed for fiscal year 2025, and all towns have paid their assessment. Then there was a report of office statistics for 2024, and I'll just touch on a couple because I thought they were interesting. Applications for Service Connect disabilities. Fiscal year 2023, there were 100, and in 1 year jumped to 162. Was just looking at the substantial increases in many of the categories, but that was one of interest. I don't know that we fully appreciate what they do for putting help to veterans. The federal benefits to the district, in calendar year 2023, there were 1,028 veterans and dependents receiving payments, and it came to $1,664,341 per month. That's calendar year 2024. So far in calendar year 2024, federal benefits to the district jumped from 1,028 to 1,078 receiving the benefits, and we're at $2,005,921 per month that they're dispersing. So they're putting an awful lot of cash into the people that have earned it through their veterans benefits for sure. That's all I have on those reports. We're down to old business, and the first knotweed management. I think we got a good overview of that from Andrew. Is there anything you want to add to your liaison on report on that matter, Andrew?
I'm sorry, on which matter, Rick?
On the knotweed management. You gave us a pretty good overview.
No, I think it's an ongoing project.
The ARPA funding requests. We did get, I think we got another number on the Village Information Center. Did we get a second one, Terry?
No, I was promised a second estimate from Harris and Gray, but never received it. Given that we're sort of running out of time, if the board feels that the quote from Dean Concrete and Excavating is fair, I'd love to see the work done between now and when the weather changes.
Harry, is the quote we're talking about just those concrete piers?
It's about 60 feet of retaining wall or foundation, 60 feet in length and about 4 feet high.
And what was the amount?
I'm sorry. The area is 4 foot by 6 foot by 8. And the price was $2,750.
And if you've
I'm in favor of moving ahead full steam. and get it done while we've got the money to spend.
I would agree. Was
Do we,
that a motion?
I'm sorry, what?
Was that a motion?
Well, before I make the motion, I guess my question to Terry is, can we move this with just one quote? Oh, I guess it's under 10,000. So
Yes.
yes, I will move that we do that. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we go ahead with Dean Concrete and Excavation for the repair of the Village Information Center foundation wall that is in ill repair for $2,750. We'll put the matter to a vote if there's no other discussion. Hearing none. Andrew?
Aye.
And Tricia?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. Motion passes unanimously. Be good to see
And
that
Rick,
moving forward. Yes, Andrew.
sorry, just a question. So is the only thing remaining to kind of button up that project so that the other people can go ahead with their project is to repair the clapboard on the wall, or is there more to do besides those things?
There's the clapboard and window replacement.
Okay, but those sound like relatively modest projects. We're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars here.
No, I can't imagine.
Yeah, okay.
I would think it would be comparable to this number actually myself, but
Yeah.
and we're waiting, we have people looking at that for quotes.
Yes.
Good. Well, moving forward on that, that's good. I'm glad I hope he can get that done before the weather prevents it until spring.
And Rick, I have another question.
Yes.
Just in terms of the remainder of the ARPA funding, maybe this is a question for Terry. Do we have to spend the money by the end of this year or obligate it?
Obligate.
So just earmark what it's going to be spent for.
Yes.
Okay.
Till the 31st of December.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, we have in front of you, after we discussed it last week in your packet, the survey of the transfer station operations, the window decal survey. The first sheet shows you your solid waste management district and whether there is a permit and a fee. I think we had talked about a window permit.
Just a question. Are you moving on from the ARPA discussion, or?
Yes, I thought we were done.
Okay, I was just wondering if we are done because there were other items sort of on the list that are just sort of hanging there. Is there a plan to how we're going to come to conclusion on obligating the remainder of the money, or are we just going to wait and see what the remaining costs are on the Vic before moving on the other stuff?
I thought that was the intent. But
okay. I just don't want us to run out of time, but yeah, that's fine.
One of the things that we had looked at thought would impact the most people would be the repair of the glacial pothole deck. I don't know, it'd been a while since I went down there, so I went down on a beautiful day and looked around. Have a reasonable knowledge of construction myself, and it looked like it certainly didn't need a full replacement. It definitely looks like a repair. There's maybe 5 deck boards that might need to be swapped out. I mean, minimal. Actually, most of them were from unmaintained vines or shrubs or saplings that came up from below and then found a crack and split the boards. We had mentioned, I think, also pulling back the decking from the tree that's there so it doesn't get strangled. Terry had mentioned that the town highway department had been maintaining that in years past. It's definitely time. It's already got a chokehold on the bark almost all the way around it, so that needs to be whittled back. Is that something you can bring to the highway department, Andrew?
Yeah. No, I'm generally in agreement with you, Rick, that I think that the deck is still got life left in it with some tweaking. I think also if if we tweak it to the point where it needs a full rebuild, I think that is an eligible CPA project. So that's something we could pursue down the road. I don't think CPA will pay for replacing boards here and there, but it will pay for, I think it will pay for a rebuild when we get to that point. But we might want to just, when we get to the discussion about building maintenance, which this is kind of in that bucket, we might look at just budgeting how we maintain our buildings, and structures. This is sort of part of that general discussion. So yeah, I would tend to put it more in that category rather than spend ARPA money on it now, unless we just want to allocate a small amount of ARPA money to hire somebody to go fix the deck,
That doesn't seem prudent to me either.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment?
I had a question about what we thought might be in excess of the current budget for Old Greenfield Road for the guardrails, et cetera. Can we use ARPA money for that? So yeah, Terry's saying yes. Okay, that's what I thought. So I'm with you on maybe passing this on to the next meeting when we know more about maybe what the, I think you said the bill was going to probably come in at the end of the month for the highway project.
Yeah, I guess my own perspective is I would advocate strongly for allocating remaining ARPA money to finishing the pocket park, because that's a more difficult project to find other funding sources for because it's on leased land. And we do have other funding sources that we can finish the Old Greenfield Road project, including Chapter 90 and fair share money and stuff like that. So I think Jeff will update us on those pots of money when we get there.
Well, we're on it. I think you would put a number in gardens, landscaping, Ashfield stone of 35,000. Yeah, 35,000. But you had said, well, that was kind of just a number to get started. Before we would assign a number, we would be looking for more information on it, right?
Well, actually, that was based on 3 quotes that I got back when I applied for a Commonwealth, what was it called? Commonwealth Spaces grant or something that we did not receive. But we put a fair amount of research into that grant application. And so that general number is based on those 3 quotes that I got back then. I think if we subtract the $7,000 we have remaining and what we've already allocated to that project, maybe we're talking about $28,000, to cover that those general numbers. But obviously those are just quotes that we would have to go to bid and get current pricing if and when we actually do that work.
Okay. Well, I'd say I'm with Tricia. Let's let it sit for a bit. We've got plenty of time. There's no reason to delay it, and there's no reason to hurry it up. So when it's time to put it forward, Andrew, go ahead and put it forward.
Okay. Well, sometime before the end of the year, I guess.
Well, yes.
Would it be possible to share those plans? Because also for what is expected to happen with the gardens and the landscaping and everything. Because actually I'm thinking of now, after having this discussion with the school board and everybody, it would be really, really nice to have a play space for kids down in the village somewhere that isn't associated with the elementary school. So any visitors who come by during the day when they're on school break and our kids aren't, won't feel weird about playing on a playground, and it's available for anyone. And I have heard that some adults like to swing on swings too. So it might be a nice addition to have, and also allow a safe space for our kids to play and make those connections.
I'd hate to be the bad person here, but I would want to talk to our insurance company about the liability of a town playground.
Yeah, I actually reread the lease again this week, and it's fairly specific as to the use of it as well. And playground didn't jump into my mind as I read that lease.
I did send Tricia those cost estimates, and Terry also has the the plans that we hired
Yeah.
Seth?
Yeah, I'm pulling a brain cramp.
Not Seth?
No, from across the river, our gardener,
I know it's
Kay Cafasso, has, pulled together a whole garden plan that we reviewed last year. So you can review that with Terry if you want to see what the detail is on all of this.
That would be
We
gret. Thank you.
approved the soil test as well. I don't know if that actually happened or if we
we
got
did,
results. It did happen.
yes. And during this discussion, I reached out to the builder who is supposed to have an estimate for me for this evening, and apparently it didn't go through our town server, so he just emailed it to my personal address. And for the repair of the siding and the window is $7,800. And that's Donaldson Builders, West Oxbow Road in Shelburne.
So if we did that work and the concrete work, we're in the $10,000 range there, and
yes,
so we'd be talking $44,000 remaining of ARPA money.
Same thing. You had difficulty getting people to put a quote in for that. Do you have another pending in that category?
No one was available to either do the work now or in the spring, and I wasn't sure we had until the spring. The owners of the abutting property have now said that they would be willing to wait until spring if we can get it done early. This particular builder is hopeful that he'll be able to start it and finish before snow flies.
What's your pleasure?
So we have just the one estimate that we'll only expect to get. Is that correct?
I can make another round. I contacted at least 8 vendors,
Yeah,
3 of which who said they just don't have time for it.
I mean, I think that seems like you made a reasonable effort.
I think we were lucky to get one who had a window of opportunity to do it this year, actually. And they're from town.
From Charlemont.
Oh, yes. West Oxbow Road, Shelburne Falls. Sorry, threw me. Yeah. Charlemont.
Terry, we're in your round, were Neil Martin or Rob Stetson or Bill Dieters or any of those folks on your list?
Neil Martin is now working for Justin Lively, and he is way too busy. I have my list on my desk at work.
Okay.
The second one you mentioned, I'm not familiar with.
He's done a lot of work in town too on various residential projects. Bill Dieters is a guy I know who lives in Buckland, as a builder. I think just finished a project out in Irving. So
If you'd prefer that I wait and get,
I don't know if you think there's a need or desire to get more quotes on that or not.
That's up to the board.
It sounds like, Andrew, at least if you would like her to try the folks that you know, 1 or 2 of those people, I'd be okay because we don't have to do it right away. But I would say if we can't get a quote from them by the end of the week, then we just go ahead with, I didn't write the name down, but the one for $7,800.
I would put that in the form of a motion that we should move to accept that bid if we don't receive other reasonable quotes worthy of consideration before that time.
Before Friday?
Yeah, before Friday.
I'll second that.
That works for me. It's been moved in second to accept the bid for the repair of the siding and replacement of the window on the Village Information Center, $7,800. Any other discussion?
Well, pending,
Sorry,
the receipt
pending
of other reasonable estimates,
by Friday.
Yeah.
By
Perfect.
Friday. And this would be using ARPA funds for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, that's
It'll
all.
be plenty enough for the pocket park as well. So, any other discussion? Matter to a vote. Andrew
All right.
and Tricia.
Aye.
Am I as well? Passes unanimously. And I think we were very fortunate to find someone in that industry that has a prayer of even starting it, much less completing it before snow flies. So that's great. Thanks for that follow-up, Terry. You're the best.
Thanks.
All right, back to the transfer station operations on the window decal. Your packet has the survey that we asked Terry to take a peek at around the county. We had talked about, I think, a $10 figure just as a starting number for an annual sticker to eliminate the question as to whether these people pulling up to the transfer station were properly from town. Any comments on the survey?
I had a couple questions just really quickly. I know Buckland does have the permit fee. I'm assuming that's the window decal, right? That's where it says either no permit like in Charlemont or free to residents do they have I believe Buckland requires a window decal, right?
Yeah.
So that's what
Yes.
that's talking about. So that's free.
Yes.
And then the fee is $2 a sticker per trash bag, right? That's
Correct.
that third column. Okay. So the only ones that don't have permits right now are us and Coleraine, although that's going away. And then Bernardston and Buckland actually provide the stickers for free, the window decals. I guess we should call them window decals, just to be clear that we're talking about that as opposed to the stickers for the bags. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so what's up with Deerfield? That's really high. I mean, and that's an annual permit fee or a lifetime?
It didn't say.
Okay. And then how does Buckland pay for the free to resident sticker? I assume it's because they're so inexpensive to get printed that they just make it part of their budget and give stickers away to people when they move in, or do we know how that works?
I don't know how it works. My suggestion was going to be that we order the first year of window decals and issue them to residents and just see if it works. See how easy it is, or if it makes a difference for the transfer station in terms of if someone comes in with one, great. If they don't have one, it just seems like it's trial and error at this point.
Yeah, I talked to Joe when I took my trash in last week, and we had a long discussion about like how he thought this might work. And I do believe that we're making the right decision about going for a window decal. He said that's like the most difficult conversation he has to have with people if he doesn't know who they are, or they're claiming to be residents and they're driving a car with out-of-state plates or something like that. That seemed like a good thing. And I think that the cost is so low. I would agree with Terry on this to just provide it for free. I happened to talk to Angel about the excise bills. I think I mentioned earlier that what if we included one of these window decals when the excise bills went out? And she thought it was a good idea at first, but then she said, then we have to keep track of the stickers and did they get one and do I need to send another one? So I was like, that's a bad idea. So then we had another idea because she happened to have this lovely piece of paper on the counter. These are old pieces she has to take off of the vendor checks. Everything's backwards on the camera, so I think I'm going the right direction and I'm not.
I can't see what you're showing other than a piece of paper.
That's all it is. It's just
Oh,
a piece
okay.
of paper. But if we could make a little, she said she would be willing to do an insert of a piece of paper this size into the excise bills, notifying residents that we would be implementing this window decal thing. This way we'd be getting to all of the people in town that have a car registered or garaged in Shelburne. So we know that we're going to get everybody who's got a car here notified. But she said she didn't want anything that had to be folded because she doesn't have a machine to do that for something like this. But if they were this size piece of paper, they would fit really well into a town of Shelburne envelope, which we tested today. So I think the printing cost associated with that would be quite minimal because it's about 2,000 pieces of paper. I mean, it wouldn't be 2,000 pieces of paper, but it would be 2,000 notices, and 3 of them could fit on one sheet of paper at a print shop, and they would just cut it for us. And then we would give those to Angel, and she said that would not be a problem as she's putting the excise bills in the mail, and that would go in January. Most of them go in January. Another set goes in February, and there's a few scattered here and there. But I think we would be able to notify people at least this way of the plan if we get this all in place by January. And then just let people know this is what's going to happen. Just come get your sticker, your window decal. That's how I was thinking it might be a little bit easier.
Carrie, thoughts?
I think I would like to use the insert as a means for people signing up for their decals. Maybe they return with their payment so that we know that you have one vehicle, this is the plate number. So we have a way of tracking, but I can certainly talk to other towns and see how they distribute them and record, so that we're not sending stickers out for someone to give to their buddy. It's going to take a little bit of thought, I think.
Rick?
Yes, Andrew.
Well, a couple of questions. I mean, one is the question of that you just raised, Terry, of how do you confirm that the sticker you hand out actually goes on a Shelburne vehicle? And the second question is, what if Shelburne residents have more than one car and they say, can I have 2 stickers? And does that create more problems? 2 window decals, sorry.
I guess that's why I was thinking we could address that with sending it out with the excise bills, because those are only for cars that are garaged in Shelburne. And it would be only cars. So
Right, I have 2 cars that are in parking areas in Shelburne. I don't put them
right,
in
so
my
you would
garage.
get two excise bills, and you would get the notices. You would get one notice for each vehicle in your excise bill.
Well, I think they
But I
all
think
come
what
in.
Terry is saying is, how would we know, matching up that those 2 together? I mean, I think.
So I just get 2 window decals and I'd be on the honor system to put them on my cars rather than hand them out to my friends in Buckland.
If you want to use the transfer station, yeah, I suppose. I mean, we do a lot of things based on the honor system, but I see your point. I mean, we've kind of gotten to the situation where we need to make a change because the honor system isn't working 100%, but it is working almost 100%. And I was just trying to think of maybe a more creative way of trying to help alleviate some of the burden on Terry. And I thought, oh, well, the excise bills go out once a year. We wanted an annual thing. We could do it that way. But maybe you're right. We just put the notice in on something like, this size paper and explain to them, you're going to need this. If you want to get a window decal, fill this out with information from your vehicle, and we'll send you a window decal.
I mean, typically the window decals are numbered and they're registered to a specific resident. And then the transfer station attendant has a list. If there's any question, number 75 was issued to Mr. Smith. Why does Mrs. Harris have it on her car? But I don't think that the attendants have the time for that. At
Right.
least, I mean, the transfer station where I reside, they have someone at the gate. If there becomes a problem, they're there to verify. But they also have, I live in a city where they have more employees.
Well, it must be
So,
working since we're one of the few towns that don't have it. The decal, that is.
mhm.
Did we
We
lose?
lost Trish.
Well, Terry, do you have a recommended approach that you feel confident and comfortable with?
I think the idea of the excise bill is a great way to get the word out and maybe have people pre-register their cars when they send in their payment. But I guess I want to think about it a little bit, see if there's any loopholes that we're missing. We'll talk to a couple of the other towns to see how they issue them and who
Yeah.
handles it. But I do think the first year we should go into it free to residents because it is a pretty insignificant cost. And just see if it makes a difference for the attendants.
Yeah, I mean, my sense of reading your cheat sheet there of the towns is that the vast majority of towns are, if they charge a fee, it's probably really just to administer the decal process. And the only real outlier is Deerfield. And my guess is they sold that expensive decal fee as a way to fund a significant chunk of the operation cost of their transfer station because they're the third largest town in the county, and they probably, just my rough math is that's probably worth about $150,000 to them, which might pay a good chunk of their whole operation.
Yeah.
So that's just another way for the residents to think about their taxes is, oh, well, we covered that with our decal, whereas for everybody else, it's just an administrative cost,
I think we have a
All right.
consensus to pursue the decal information with no fee to the residents, kind of as a trial basis the first year, but without saying so. And include a notice with the excise taxes makes total sense, especially if we put in, here's the information you'll need to come back to with your request for it. And I don't know if we want to be mailing them out. We might want to be thinking about pick it up at town hall or pick it up at the transfer station or do it at the annual meeting or do it in a bunch of places until we get that process going. So I think at this point, we want to have Terry look a little further into that and continue on the path of looking at this as an option. I think it's time to do something.
I'm
And
happy to do that. If Terry, do you want a provisional motion now just so we don't run out of time for this mailing, or do you feel like we can do this at the next meeting?
I think we can do it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Great. Trish, you're back. So did you hear we're going to move forward with more information and that the feeling is we have a consensus to move forward and institute a decal system with notification in the excise tax bills. I think that makes sense. Okay. Can't hear you.
Sorry, that all sounds good. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, Rick, you were frozen, and then I realized, oh, everybody else is frozen too. So
I am actually freezing. It was so warm today, and now it's starting to get cool in here. So maybe you saw something you didn't
There you
realize.
go.
Solar array installation, tentative start. You gave us an update on that, Andrew, so we're covered there. Anything else? Um, Deerfield River Watershed Association. We did receive communication from the chair of the Open Space Committee. He contacted the Deerfield River Watershed Association and informed him that Joan LaPierre would be attending in a non-voting capacity so that she wasn't behind the eight ball, since this is the formation of a new group, and that they will confirm with their vote at their next meeting. But the first meeting of the Rivershed happens before the Open Spaces next meeting. Anything else on that? Good. New business. Proposed application for transient vendors, peddlers, and solicitors. We got a whole bunch of things this summer. Terry can tell you better than I, but just seemed like back to back from solar people and all sorts of people who just want to go door to door looking for permits. And Terry dug into what other towns are doing, found a couple of really good examples of what may work for Shelburne. So the chief and Terry and I reviewed it, put together, basically stole everything that was good, took out everything that wasn't applicable to us. That's the way it works, right? And came up with the sheets you see in front of you, which is basically a policy. There's 9 items there, and a form that would be applicable to all different kinds of vendors, because some require other things, documents than other categories don't require. What are your thoughts on this?
So is this, I'm sorry, go ahead, Trish.
I had a question about the difference of between a vendor, a hawker, a peddler, or a solicitor, to start off with, because they're not always called out as those 4 separate entities in each of the policy items. So I don't know if we just want to say this applies to all transient vendors, hawkers, peddlers, and solicitors, now being called the one thing, like solicitors, and then go through, so we don't end up with, well, I'm a peddler, I'm a vendor, and this didn't apply to me because number 1 only says hawkers and peddlers. You know what I mean? So I didn't know if there was a reason for that, or it was just we're trying to piece together the good parts and get rid of the bad parts, like you said, Rick.
Yeah. Well, I think the hawkers and peddlers are defined by that Mass General law, and they are different. So yeah, I appreciate your spotting that there's potential for confusion of someone applying who doesn't know which they are. Terry, thoughts on that?
I agree that we should change it in some way.
Well, hereafter known as the blah blah, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Applicant.
Yeah.
Known as the applicant. How about that?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Super.
Rick, I have a question also.
Yes, Andrew.
Sort of like Trisha's, is this does this apply to food vendors?
No.
How are
No.
they differentiated from vendors?
Transient vendors, I think, defined by Mass General law, are door-to-door people, or people that come in with the carts of the, at parades for stuffed animals and balloons and things.
So if somebody's got a cart selling hot dogs on the sidewalk, that's not a transient vendor?
That's a food.
Temporary food establishment
Okay.
licensed by another whole branch.
Okay. And
Actually-
so what about the folks handing out religious literature on the sidewalk? Are they in this category or not?
They're not engaging in a trade.
But they're soliciting people with their literature or whatever.
That's an interesting question. because I was thinking the same thing as Terry. They're not doing any kind of trade with cash or anything else, but they are sort of soliciting.
That was my question is, do you have to be asking for money to solicit, or is it just engaging people in proselytizing the word of the Lord there?
So I guess I'd take solicitors off the table because Mass General Law defines hawkers and peddlers and transient vendors. And
Okay.
just take solicitors
And
off.
so if Mass Purg or Clean Water Action comes to my door, they're just a nonprofit vendor or something? Or what are they?
Anyone who goes door to door typically comes into town hall to see what the process is for getting permission, most anyway. And so I collect all their information, the make, the model of their car, who they're working for, copy of their license, how long they're going to be in town. And I give it all to the police department. So if we get any complaints or there's a suspicious car, we at least know who's in town. This way, I feel like it's more of a review process that's involved.
So you're already doing this even though we haven't yet got this form in
We're
place.
doing it in a very informal way.
Okay.
And so far in the last 2 months, I've had 2 solar, a book salesman, an investment salesperson, and it's just gotten to the point where the police send them to the town clerk sends them over to me, and it's just this who's on first, who's on second. And
Right.
I don't know if the energy committee should weigh in on, if solar solicitor conflicts with a project they're working on. There just needs to be more checks and balances. I feel we owe it to our residents.
Right. Well, I think just to weigh in on that side, the Energy Committee did go through a whole discussion of whether or not to partner with Revise Energy, which was doing what was one of the companies doing this door-to-door outreach, and I think they did wind up sort of selecting them as a partner, which doesn't preclude other companies from going in and doing their own soliciting, because it's more or less free country, but that was just a distinction that they made in terms of that one company being able to say we are partnering with the town of Shelburne and offering these services or whatever. But yeah, other companies could still come and knock on your door and try to sell you a solar panel.
I think the whole process is definitely prudent since we have a vacuum there. And when people show up on your stoop at 6 o'clock at night and knock on your door, it'd be nice to have the official documentation in place. And then, as Terry said, the police aware of it as well. I think, why don't we scratch the word solicitors and change the wording to the applicant to get rid of the discrepancy and take it up again next meeting.
And
Okay,
just
one thing.
one other category there is what about people canvassing for political issues or candidates? Do they fall into a category? Do they need to do something in order to go knock on doors or not?
I don't think they're a vendor or a hawker or a peddler.
That would be a question for Joe, I think, if it's election related.
Yeah.
One more thing to know come our next meeting.
Oh, can I just throw in something since we're going to talk about it again, just to think about, I won't answer a door if somebody's showing up at 7 o'clock at night, especially in the winter. And so I don't know. And I understand people who are engaging in this type of business would want to come outside of normal working hours. So they would want to come maybe that late, but I guess I could just put a no solicitor sign on my door and that's that if they want to walk that quarter mile up my driveway, more power to them.
I think you're a lot less at risk of being solicited than I am, Tricia. I have been solicited by various nonprofit organizations and by Seventh-day Adventists and other folks, so I'm happy to answer the door and speak with them. But if they, get some form that they sign with the town that says they can do that, it's fine with me too. I'm just more trying to figure out these people who are in a gray area. They're not asking for money. They're preaching the word of the Lord, whatever it is they're doing, and, what do we do with them?
Yeah, that's true. I had another thought, but it just flew away. Sorry. Okay, so oh yes. So this is going to be a policy, so is it going to have to be reviewed by town council? Hi.
Too cute.
It probably wouldn't hurt to have her take a look at it.
And then this is just something that doesn't have to go to town meeting since it's just a policy. It's something that we can agree on. Okay, thank you.
We'll take a new look at it next meeting.
Okay,
And
great. Thank you.
You'll ask Joe about his opinion on the political campaigning as well. Thank you. Okay, Asher equipment grant request from the chief. Self-explanatory, thumbs up. You've read it. It's 100% funding, no matching. It's actually the police support the fire district and the fire district support the police. So both of those letters have been in front of you in your packet.
I'll move that we authorize Greg to apply for the grant.
I second.
Moved and seconded to authorize the application for the Western Region Homeland Security Advisory Council Asher Equipment Grant. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Andrew?
Aye.
Tricia?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank the chief for doing this for everybody. Please.
We'll do. We'll see him Thursday.
We will.
All right, zoning board, request to appoint Jesse Seaver of 1184 Mohawk Trail to the zoning board. You have Jesse's overview letter dated October 1st and the ZBA appointment request.
I will move that we appoint Jesse Seaver to the zoning board.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded for the appointment of Jesse Seaver to the zoning board. Any further discussion?
I'm just wondering who left the zoning board. Was it Joe? Oh, who?
I think it's been a vacancy right along, hasn't it?
Oh, okay.
Joe did leave, yeah.
Okay.
Joe is there as an alternate.
Okay. All right.
This will bring them up to full, though, I believe.
Great.
Oh, it's been moved and seconded. Andrew moved it, I believe. Getting dizzy. We'll take it to a vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Tricia?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved unanimously. Any other business? Andrew, you experienced something when you had people, I believe it was from Renaissance, Joe Matty, the architect, and others looking up in the ceiling up in the town hall, and they discovered the plugged drain mechanism on the roof of town hall, which hadn't been maintained, and perhaps it caused some of these leaks. So until that's cleaned out and we get some rain, we won't know for sure if there was a problem or if this problem created the problem. So you wanted to discuss building maintenance position this evening.
Yeah, well, we definitely should get the drains cleared out. And do we have anybody doing building maintenance at present, or are we in between?
We've never had Our highway crew, when heavy rain is predicted, used to clean the drains at the Arms Library. On occasion, they'd go to Cowell and Town Hall, but that hasn't occurred in years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we have a
Yes.
custodian position, but we've never had a building maintenance person position. Buckland has one. I'm surprised we don't have one for things like this, that can be handled easily by a handyman, basically, or a woman, a handy person. So
Well, yeah, I mean, this kind of situation is definitely, I mean, this is going to cost us some not insignificant money to go in and fix the damaged insulation, the mold, possible mold up there that the longer we let it sit, it's going to get really bad if we let it sit there. And it'll start rotting the, support structure of the roof. It's serious business. So we have to fix that problem, but we also need to address just the need for preventive maintenance, around our various buildings so that we don't get into these kind of costs. That Maddie's assessment was when all that gunk, piles up around the drains, it raises the water level on the roof that just starts pooling on the roof. And then that water, which normally, would drain off and you would probably not, then the roof would be reasonably tight. That when you have standing water on the roof, a couple of inches of it, it's going to look for little holes that it will find. And that's, I think, what we've got up there now.
I'll do a poor man's screen share.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah.
I wasn't even aware that basket was there. What is it for? Ventilation of some kind?
I think it's an opening into the drain, and right, that the drain is under there, so that's to keep critters out, but also allow the other stuff to collect and prevent the water from going down. So in some locations around the country, they actually use volunteers to do some of this work. For example, in the city of Charleston in South Carolina, the neighborhoods adopt the drains on their roads. So I'm not talking about buildings, but it's something to consider as we're brainstorming here, that they will adopt the drains on their road and keep them free of debris so that when those big rainstorms come, the water can actually go into the sewer system like it's supposed to. They discovered that when the drains are sort of blocked, like we're learning, all kinds of backups happen and it causes a lot of issues. So I'm wondering if we can think about some creative ways to handle some of these issues. If we have, I know what you're thinking, Terry, right off the bat, she's going, there's insurance concerns.
You should
You have to worry about liability.
You should see how you get to the roof at Memorial Hall in Cowell. You would rethink this suggestion. It's straight up a wall.
Yeah, no, well, you won't see me volunteering for that, but I'm wondering, in terms of some of the other building maintenance, though, if we need people to do that, that might be a way that we don't have to hire a full-time person to do all the buildings. We could use some of our wonderful volunteers to kind of help with easier things, make it an event. We're going to paint the room or something like that. And it actually works and helps in multiple ways. You get the painting done, you build community, build resilience. I'm all about the resilience. So these are all of the, you didn't know that about me, did you, Rick?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get you a t-shirt.
I have a logo. But anyway, so it's something that I'd love for us to think about, though I'm not going to ask a volunteer to scale a wall like Spider-Man to go clear out a drain on the top of Town Hall, or Memorial Hall. So
I think there's
we need to solve that.
So many opportunities, though, for a position like this. Our custodian is part-time, I forget, 2 days a week now or something. I don't know what Buckland's building maintenance person is, but I doubt it's a full-time position. I'm sure it's a hours available per week or whatever, but I think a position of building maintenance should be considered. A perfect example, Tom Williams wanted the lights changed in the conference room at the police station. They're so high, we're not going to have a volunteer go in there with 15-foot ladder and try and change light bulbs in the ceiling and stuff like that. I think finding a way to have or locate and keep a equivalent position to the custodial for building maintenance to be able to do, change a lock or replace a broken lock or, just overall building maintenance, light bulbs in the ceiling of the police station, and be willing to get on the roof and clean. I think that's called a scupper, maybe, where it drains into the water off the roof. So
I'm very impressed with your vocabulary. I just want to say.
Look it up. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's a
I
scupper.
thought it was on a ship, but I'll go with it.
They are there too, but they're on buildings as well. So is that something that we would need to take to town meeting to do? Is this something we can say, let's put an ad out and see if anybody's willing to apply for a part-time position of building maintenance, or should we have Terry check with Buckland and find out how they handle it and talk about it at another meeting? What's your pleasure? Andrew?
Couple of questions. Terry, is the person who is doing our custodial work somebody who would be interested in this kind of work too?
No, he's a retired gentleman who cleans for the town hall, Cowell, and the senior center. That's all he wants.
If I remember correctly, he did not want to also take on the library, right?
That's correct. We do have a building and grounds position. We have a job description for that position, but we've never been able to find, it's been filled twice. The position was under the guidance of the highway superintendent, and the individual was responsible for mowing, snow removal, all aspects of building maintenance, but we could never keep someone in that position long term.
Do we have to have that allocated in the budget, or since we already have it, we have that position, we maybe just need to rewrite the job description?
Certainly you could rewrite the job description. The budget right now pays for the custodian to do the cleaning. It pays for us to hire people to clean the mini split heads annually. When routine maintenance is needed in some of the buildings, that budget covers it. Buildings and grounds, the mowing comes out of there, the winter snow removal comes out of there for sidewalks and decks.
So Rick Grant was doing mowing, but he's stepped away and shoveling. He's stepped away from some of that.
Yes. Now we have 3 or 4 people doing little jobs here and there. It would be interesting to see if there's enough to create a part-time position, or just ask the highway in some form of a rotating schedule to at least once or twice a year to check the roof drains like they once used to.
Is this something we could ask the technical school to help with?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, my
kids gotta
sense
learn.
my sense is that the way this person would really be deployed would be in concert with the intel that Terry is providing, as well as the occupants and users of our other buildings and structures, like the band shell and the pothole deck, and Greg is in the police building, and John Walsh is watching over the Cowell gym, and just to have people feeding that person oh, here's a problem there that needs tending to, whatever, I think that that's probably where the punch list is going to come from, is from that kind of attention, that people have to our various buildings. Do you see it that way, Terry, or do you?
Yes, I just don't know if there's enough on a daily basis
Right.
to
No, I
keep a
don't
person.
I don't think it's necessarily a full-time or even a half-time job. I think it's a job that you want somebody who's available and kind of ready to respond to those kinds of requests.
I think Buckland's is a full-time position, but when the individual's not working um, in their buildings, he's out as a plow spare for the highway department, he or she.
Mhm. Well, I'd be glad to talk with, I mean, Tricia, if you think there are people who will do this work for free, I'm more than happy to have you put that word out there and see if you can find some of those folks. But otherwise, I would talk to Jeff and see if we can, get some spare help from one of the highway crew folks to, kind of be our uh on-call person for those kinds of projects when they need doing.
I really would be nervous about a volunteer given workman's comp liabilities, ladders, doing light bulbs, the access to the roof of town hall, as Terry mentioned, the roof to the cowl. We
Well, I
don't,
think we would, yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. I thought I was nervous about the highway department going down that uh the rock cliff or the rock fall on Old Greenfield Road to pull weeds. So I agree with you, but I think for something simple like, a lock replacement, somebody could do that. Even I could do that. So yeah, something like that we could get people to do little things and save the bigger jobs that require uh, more courage or skill or both.
well,
Um,
I think for immediately, we should ask Andrew to ask Jeff to get somebody up on the roof of Cowell, get somebody up on the roof of the the library and town hall, the three that they used to do, and get that back into their routine, maybe spring and fall, late fall after the leaves are gone, um, and late spring after all the little buds and um, little windmill seed bursts from maple trees and all that are done. They would know the timing and at least get that done before too long, within the foreseeable future. And if anybody comes up with any better ideas about trying to fill a position or not fill a position, we can bring it up again later. But Andrew wanted it discussed tonight. I'm happy to do it. And the pictures, the pictures told the story that we definitely need somebody to be able to say, hey, get up, please take care of that for us. But we don't have anybody right now if it's not the town. So let's start with the highway department on those three roofs. And
And do you want, how do you want to proceed with sort of exploring the extent of the water damage that has occurred?
does that insurance matter, Terry?
Because we hired, as part of our capital renovation project for the theater, the Memorial Hall Association hired Renaissance builders to go up above the ceiling to take a look, and so that we could get an estimate to put together bid specs with. And it was at that time they sort of noticed, oh, you got another problem over here with water damage, but we haven't, to really look at it, you probably have to take down the plastic that's holding up all that insulation, and then, pull down all the wet insulation, and then, see what's up there. all that. So there's a project there that needs doing.
That's not a building and maintenance and grounds person either that's going to tackle something like that, I don't think, right? That's a much bigger job, right?
Well, no, yeah, you'd have to hire a contractor to, go deal with all that, yeah. And we will be going out to bid to fix the ceiling, but I think that's sort of a question is whose bucket does that fall in? Is that part of the theater renovation project, or is that just a roof failure project that the town needs to deal with?
Well, I'll have to look at the warranty on the roof to see how far back it goes. I know that it was a new membrane, and then the HVAC compressor unit was installed and we had leaks. So we had some repairs done. But I'll look at the warranty of the roof, and then we have a roof stabilization account specific for our town buildings.
Okay. And do you know how old that roof is?
No, I'll have to go back. Time has a way of flying.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, that's good that we do have a roof stabilization that we can hire somebody to fix that problem from. Then we're not.
I don't think it could be an insurance claim, especially if we don't have a routine roof maintenance program where we're actually going to make sure that drains are cleared.
Okay. Well, I will talk to Jeff about the drain clearing part, and Terry can do a little bit of research, and we can figure out the contractor part of it at our next meeting.
Okay.
Fair enough. Also under any other business, we're going to, you saw in the packet, looking at appointing John Wheeler to the Franklin County Planning Board in my place. You'll recall that Tricia had served in that role from the Planning Board, going over to Select Board, time constraints, chose not to stay in that position. I volunteered and attended the first meeting and was 100% convinced I was the wrong guy to be there. So I spoke to John Wheeler and later found out through Terry that Paul Hollins had been properly registered with them as the representative from the Planning Board. I was a representative from the Select Board, but the Select Board can also appoint a designee. And John Wheeler has stepped up and is willing to take that and asked us to appoint him this evening to that position as the second town representative to the Franklin Regional Planning Board. And if we do pass that motion, Terry will file the proper paperwork, and Paul and John can then attend those meetings, cover each other if only one can make it, because there is so much information, including that toolbox that you mentioned earlier from the unpaved roads. I mean, it definitely should be somebody from the planning board.
We'll move that we appoint John Wheeler to be our second representative to the Franklin Regional Planning Board.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Andrew.
Aye.
Tricia.
Aye.
I passes unanimously. One more item under any other business. We have a request to amend the film permit to block off 4 parking spaces near Myrick Insurance this Thursday, the 24th, to film a scene inside Myrick Insurance. So they obviously have commented to them that they're fine with what needs to be done between 9 and 5:30. Terry checked with the chief of police, who had no problem with it, though he said it was probably more about the adjacent merchants than anything as far as traffic safety to have 4 of those spots blocked off. But it would require an amendment to the permit we previously gave them. And I think there's a separate fee too, right, Terry? $200 fee for the additional permit for using the parking spaces.
Yes, it was originally all supposed to take place in one day of filming. Apparently the actor was unavailable, so they're seeking permission to do the filming on Thursday inside Myrick Insurance, but because they're requesting to use 4 parking spaces, an additional $200 permit fee will apply if approved.
Did you say this came in our packet? Because I didn't see it, or it
No.
came in.
No.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It happened today.
Oh,
This
okay.
came last night at 9:30.
Okay, no
I'll
worries. I
move
thought I
that
missed something.
I'll move that we amend the film permit as stated.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call to a vote. Andrew.
Aye.
Tricia.
Aye.
And I am aye as well. Passes unanimously to amend the permit as described. I see no correspondence. Oh, any other business? Our next regularly scheduled meeting, November 4th. I see no correspondence in our packet. And no one from the public for comment. So I think we are down to adjournment. Am I wrong? Am I missing anything?
I think the only correspondence that we got by email was the woman who wrote in about the film permit, and I don't have anything more to say about it myself. I think it was an interesting conversation. And oh, I will say one thing about it, which is not so much about her concern, but about our response, and that because Joe Judd sort of raised a little flag about open meeting, and I followed up with him. We had a good chat with it about it, but I wanted to share with the two of you that the only reason that Joe kind of jumped in there, I think, was because Terry was on vacation, and that we were engaging in that conversation with the two of you CC'd as kind of observers. And Joe was a little bit queasy about that, even though I personally don't think that's a violation of open meeting law. But the reality is that for me, my general practice when conversing with somebody is to CC Terry on it. And that way I know that the two of you will get alerted to the fact that this conversation is going on without me directly speaking to you about it. And you would do the same with me, and Terry would kind of be our intermediary. And I think that to me is a acceptable way of having conversations in between meetings that are not deliberations, but don't even raise the perception of any open meeting law question. And so I just wanted to put that on the table, as that's my kind of modus operandi about open meeting and conversing with people, whether they're citizens or board members of other boards or whatever. And I would expect you all to do the same, and that way we're covered.
I agree. It's the safer way, and seemed to be the accepted protocol when I came on the board. And I think it's a great practice. Put it through Terry, and then there's never any questions. So, but I agree, we're all set. And so we just acknowledge receipt of that communication, and so noted. Great. A motion to adjourn?
I'll do that. So moved.
I will second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Good
See you
night.
soon.